This episode is brought to you by the Cajun Spoon, the small box with the big flavor, featuring easy-to-prepare jambalaya, gumbo, shrimp and corn bisque, and more. Available nationwide at your local Walmart, or order online at www.thecajunspoon.com. Long enough to cover the subject and short enough to keep it interesting. Welcome to Outta My League. I'm Nick Diaz. All right, fine, I'll admit it. The only reason why I did the video about LSU gonna beat Kansas State, or why I thought they might, I just had a really cool idea about finding the patterns in LSU winning games, and I was like, whatever. Yeah, this will be a cool video idea to do. I'll take my loss by all of you in the comments section. Have at it. But I don't really care, because the game itself, what does it really mean? Nothing. What can we take from it? Not much, except for maybe one thing. Toughness. That's kind of what Brian Kelly said yesterday during an interview, right?
I think the outcome is less important than how they go out and play and compete, because all eyes are on them. The head coach is up there watching you. And so how you compete, how you go out there and represent the university is much more important.
Did you see the last play of the game? I mean, I didn't. I turned the game off in the middle of the third quarter, but LSU kept chucking the ball down the field and scored on a Chris Hilton touchdown pass to end the game. And Brad Davis was asked in the press conference, well, why didn't you just, run the ball down and take a knee? And Brad Davis just responded, well, we're from South Louisiana. That's not who we are. Now, most people would roll their eyes at that comment like that, and I would be one of them, because, all right, that's nice of you to say that, Coach, but spare me the Disney Channel sports movie one-liner crap. But it got me thinking. This team prepared under Brian Kelly's practice schedule, supposedly, this entire time. Brian Kelly sent a message to the team with his interview saying the results of this game, they don't really matter. So how do you build a championship culture when telling them that the results of the game doesn't really matter? Well, the same way in 2018, Frank Reich, who was the new head coach for the Indianapolis Colts, they were losing in their fourth or fifth game of the season in overtime to the Houston Texans. They were losing by 3 points. And they were in somewhat field goal range, and they could have made it. And they could have tied it with a field goal and given them a chance to extend the game or tie it or just win the game later if they made a defensive stop. And instead, on 4th and long, they chose to go for it instead of just kicking a safer field goal to extend the game or at least give you an opportunity to tie. Instead, they lost. And Frank Wright was asked about it, and he simply responded, I didn't come here to tie. I came here to send a message to our team. We don't accept losing. Even if it means making a stupid decision in your first year going for it on 4th and long instead of kicking a field goal. And everyone bashed him for it, because the season they started out 1-5. And then they finished the season 10-6, and they won a wild card playoff game. The same way that in 2014, the New England Patriots, they were early in the season, and I think it was the second or third game of the season, and they were just destroyed by the Kansas City Chiefs, 41-14. And that was the famous "We're on to Cincinnati" press conference by Bill Belichick. Now, the Patriots were down 17-0 at halftime, and Bill Belichick told his team,
we were talking about adjustments and all that, but I didn't really feel like that's what the game was about at all. I felt like the game was just really about competition. And that's what I told the team at halftime. I said, this second half is going to define our season. I want to see what kind of football team we have. I'm not that concerned about the score until we start competing better, until we start playing harder. All the X's and O's and adjustments and all that aren't going to make any difference.
And they went back out onto the field, and they lost the game by the worst margin of defeat in the Bill Belichick era. And all Bill Belichick said after that game was,
when I walked off the field that night, I really felt good about the team, even though we'd gotten, smashed. I felt something about the team that night in the second half that I really thought we can build on. Anybody that wanted to cash it in there could have cashed it in. We weren't going to win. We were behind. We're on the road. Their crowd was in a frenzy. The Chiefs are playing very well. I felt good about their toughness, their competitiveness, that they cared, that they really played with a purpose, and they cared about each other. Okay, if we have this, then in the end, we're going to have a chance.
And they went on to win the Super Bowl that year. Look, Brian Kelly knew LSU had 38 scholarship players. He knew the possibility of this big blowout was very real, was likely going to happen. Coaches used the media to send messages to the team. Hell, for all I know, he probably told the team that in a meeting once. He's saying, I'm watching you. All I ask is one thing. Just don't quit on me. I'll fix the rest. We'll fix the rest as we go along. Just don't quit on me. Brad Davis said Brian Kelly and him have been speaking every other day about how he wants practice to be run, what the expectations are. Look, we'll figure out the rest in spring practice. All right, the point of this game is just don't quit. Show toughness. Set the culture for toughness. That was the whole point of the game. A team that gets blown out and still shows toughness in a blowout, they usually bounce back, eventually, if they have the talent. Will Wade and LSU Basketball proved that last night in beating Kentucky. The same thing Will Wade said after the Auburn game. LSU started 0 for 16 from the floor. They were down 18-1, and somehow, later in the game, LSU came within 6 points with 7 minutes left in the game. Because Will Wade ultimately said, look, there's nothing we can do about today. Just don't quit. We're made of the right stuff. That was his exact quote. We're made of the right stuff. Just don't quit. We'll fix the rest as we go along. And last night, they fixed some of it. Toughness is holding Kentucky's top 10 offense to just 2 points in a 10-minute stretch at the end of the game. But the thing that has been lost in the top-ranked defense in college basketball for LSU, but as impressive as LSU's number one ranked defense in the country has been, there's been something lost in all of this. Balance. For the last 20 years, every single national title team in NCAA men's basketball has had balance on offense. Whether it's 6 guys averaging 8 points a game or 3 guys averaging over 16 points a game, they all have it. And believe it or not, that's something that LSU did not have last year. They had a bunch of really high scorers and then a huge dip with guys that were averaging like 2 points a game. Darius Days had to shoot well to win the game. That's why he was the guy who every time he was on, usually LSU won. This LSU team has 6 guys averaging 8 points a game. And last night, you had 7 scoring at least 6. Balance. You know what happens when you have a few more reliable guys? In the first half, nobody on the team played more than 14 minutes. So they were fresh by the end of the game. This may not seem like a big deal, but it will come in handy when the calendar turns to March. It's called team basketball, and it still works. So give Will Wade credit for winning this game, because winning this game, or winning any game, is all about 2 things. Know your strengths and weaknesses, and know your opponent's strengths and weaknesses. That's it. Now, it can be complicated, but it's really simple. LSU does not shoot the ball very well from 3. LSU, in last night's game, took better shot selections. Kentucky rebounds the ball better than almost any team in the country. Last night, Kentucky's leading rebounder had less than his season average in rebounds. Find your weakness, minimize it. Find your opponent's strengths, and minimize it. That's the game. Now, let me take a giant shit on Will Wade once again. Will Wade's biggest weakness is closing out games. We're in year 5, and this is still a problem. LSU has the game in hand with a minute or 2 left, and they start to fall apart and choke, just like they did against Arkansas in 2019, against Texas Tech last season, which, holy God, that was just maddening to watch. They almost did it to Florida in 2020 at home, and I can think of many others, but the awareness in these situations for Will Wade teams is just not great. They're not good in situational awareness at the end of games. For whatever reason why, I don't know. It could be lack of preparation, which doesn't really make sense for a Will Wade team. It could be lack of focus in that situation because you get a little lackadaisical, you get a little relaxed, and you let the team come back in. You don't stay focused. I don't know. For whatever reason why, it just needs to get fixed. The good news, besides the 3-point shooting, all of LSU's problems are fixable in season. Situational awareness, health on your team, shot selection, turnovers, all of those things can be fixed in season. And Will Wade has proven that he can fix them when the calendar turns over to March. Thanks for listening to Out of My League. If you like what you heard, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, or follow me on Twitter and Facebook in the description link below.